Intuitive Machines landed a spacecraft on the moon, sideways, on February 22nd. While we wait and wait for pictures, you may have noticed something interesting. Odysseus has the Columbia Sportswear logo on it. If you're wondering why exactly Columbia Sportswear is on the moon, I've got the rundown for you. It has to do with heat and cold. And no, this video is in no way sponsored or paid for by Columbia Sportswear. Intuitive Machines actually partnered with Columbia to build the insulation for their lunar lander. The moon doesn't really have weather as we know it because it doesn't really have an atmosphere. What it does have is an exosphere, which is extremely thin, to the point where the molecules in it don't really even interact or collide much. The exosphere is primarily composed of neon, argon, and helium, and a lot of it comes from solar wind. On Earth, our atmosphere, which is so big it actually stretches out past the moon and the moon passes through it, is what protects us from the harsh realities of space. But the moon's exosphere basically does nothing. So the moon's surface is subject to extreme temperatures, both cold and hot. During lunar day, which is happening right now on the moon, temperatures can get as high as 250 degrees Fahrenheit or 121 degrees Celsius. That is why Odysseus needs heat protection. This is where Columbia comes in. Their Omni-Heat Infinity technology, which is basically a gold metallic foil with mylar dots, lines some of their coats. The dots are designed to reflect and conserve warmth. In the case of Odysseus, the insulation is designed to protect the spacecraft from both the cold temperatures in space and the very warm temperatures on the moon. It's been tested and is expected to protect the lander from negative 250 degrees Fahrenheit to positive 250 degrees Fahrenheit, or negative 156 degrees Celsius to 121 degrees Celsius. The funny thing is that it's actually inspired by NASA's reflective technology that they developed to protect spacecraft. So it's kind of a full circle. By the way, if you're interested at all in these jackets, they appear to run from about $150 to $180. I am not trying to sell you an expensive piece of outerwear, and I don't own one of them. But I do think it's cool that you can buy a jacket that uses heat technology developed for space travel. So what about lunar nights is the question. The moon takes 28 days to complete one rotation, which means days are 2 Earth weeks long and nights are as well. Nights on the moon can get very cold. The temperature can hit as low as negative 208 degrees Fahrenheit or a negative 133 degrees Celsius on average, which at first glance seems to be within the range of Omni-Heat's tech capabilities. So Odysseus will survive the lunar night, right? Well, Odysseus is near the moon's south pole, possibly within the Malapert A crater, and it is even colder there. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has measured temperatures as cold as negative 410 degrees Fahrenheit, or negative 246 degrees Celsius in this region. In fact, these lunar craters near the South Pole may be the coldest spots in the solar system, colder than Pluto. Pluto's average temperature, by comparison, is a balmy negative 387 degrees Fahrenheit on average, or negative 232 degrees Celsius. On top of that, impact craters on the moon are known to have cold spots. These appear after the sun sets, and it's not clear why they're colder than their surroundings, but they do radiate heat for some reason. In addition, conditions within craters at the moon's poles are even more extreme than other areas on the moon's surface. The sun never shines on some of these crater floors, so some of them are permanently dark and cold. All of this means the lander is not expected to survive the lunar night. And it isn't designed to. The mission duration is approximately the 9 or 10 days of lunar daylight the spacecraft has left. A lot of people have been wondering why a company would go to the trouble of sending a spacecraft all the way to the moon and then not designing it to survive for the long term. There's a few reasons. First of all, let me reiterate, it is extremely cold during lunar night at the South Pole. And IM-1 is just a demonstration mission to make sure this technology works and can reach the moon. Keeping everything as simple as possible is the idea. Designing a spacecraft to survive both lunar day and lunar night is much more complicated than just lunar day. It's just not necessary right now, so they didn't do it. Eventually it will be, and at that point they'll tackle the problem. During the press conference on Friday, Tim Crane, the chief technology officer of Intuitive Machines, said that once lunar night hits, the batteries will work to keep the lander warm as long as possible, but they just don't think it will survive the 2 weeks of darkness.
The early missions are all solar powered and require that, and then once the sun sets on Odie, the batteries will attempt to keep the vehicle warm and alive, but eventually it'll fall into a deep cold. And then the electronics that we produce just won't survive the deep cold of lunar night. And so best case scenario, we're looking at another 9 to 10 days.
And the next time the sun shines in the Malapert A region, Intuitive Machines will attempt to contact Odysseus, but they don't expect to hear anything back.